We now have every duty to fulfill that hope and fight for that change. And that change means a Canada that is affordable, safe, self-reliant, and united. And those are our priorities for this session of Parliament. Our plan, first, we've got to get the cost of living down. And we're going to be demanding a spring budget that reveals the true deficit, lowers spending, taxes, and inflation. Second, to get homes built by cutting taxes and red tape on construction. Third, to restore economic independence by unleashing our businesses and our resources. Fourth, to bring safety to our streets by locking up dangerous offenders and securing our borders. And fifth, speaking of our borders, we need to get immigration under control after a decade of liberal incompetence. First, his finance minister said there would be no budget this year for the first time outside of COVID in approximately 2 decades. Then the Prime Minister came out and said, well, there will be a budget, but it will be in the fall when half of the fiscal year is over. How do you budget for something that has already happened? Maybe they think that budgets will balance themselves. We need a budget to cut bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and corporate welfare to generate the savings for lower debt, taxes, and inflation. For too long, workers and small businesses have carried this morbidly obese government on their backs. They can't afford it. They can't bear it anymore. Lowering the cost of government will lower the cost of living. We must unburden our hardworking people so that they can go further and reach higher. With stronger buying power and lower taxes, our incredible workers and entrepreneurs will have their work rewarded, their purchasing power preserved, and our economy strengthened. And speaking of our economy, our second priority is economic independence for Canada. We all want a permanent end to tariffs with the U.S., and we will work with the government to help make that happen. I've already told the Prime Minister that we are happy to cooperate any way we can to bring about an end to this unnecessary dispute and restore our sovereign, not just our sovereignty, but also tariff-free access to the most successful international trading arrangement in the world. And we can't help but note that the Prime Minister promised during the election that he would put his elbows up and apply dollar-for-dollar tariffs that would raise tens of billions of dollars. Now, let's be clear. He said that it would raise $20 billion this year alone, and he published that in a platform released after he had quietly eliminated most of those tariffs. So how is he going to make up the money? And why did he put his elbows down when he said they were up? Look, despite the Prime Minister's doublespeak, we will work, as I said, to help him try and get a trade deal to put an end to the tariffs. But we also need to focus on making our own economy more independent and self-reliant so that we're no longer vulnerable to such international surprises. That means unleashing our industry and its mighty workers to make things here for ourselves and for overseas markets. It's not enough to say you want to build. The government must remove the laws, taxes, and rules that stand in the way. And that's why Conservatives are proposing practical and real removal of obstacles, end the industrial carbon tax, the energy caps, the electric vehicle mandates, the No New Pipelines law, the West Coast shipping ban, and more. If the government agrees to these changes, we will move as early as the spring to pass them all. They have our word. Let's remove the obstacles. Let's harvest our resources. Let's make Canada truly independent. Will allow us to be self-reliant from the U.S. by building mines, pipelines, nuclear and LNG plants, hydroelectric dams, and so much more. We must be the fastest place in the OECD to get a building permit, and we must have the lowest taxes on work, investment, energy, and home building. And speaking of home building, that brings us to our third priority. Conservatives will fight to free up land, speed up permits, and cut taxes on buyers and builders. We must restore the dream of home ownership that has been lost over the last Liberal decade. And we will fight to end catch and release bail, house arrest, multiple murder discounts. We'll push for treatment and not drugs to free our loved ones from the clutches of addiction. We want a drug-free Canada where people can get back on their feet and have hope. And we want to restore sanity to our immigration system. We must end the out-of-control liberal immigration by reducing numbers, capping population, deporting criminals, and integrating newcomers. Canadians are a welcoming people, but our healthcare, housing, and job markets are now overflowing because population growth has been too fast under the Liberals. We must also ensure integration. We must ensure that foreign conflicts are left at the door. No more rampaging anti-Semitic riots on Canadian streets. And our 5 goals for this session: bring down the cost of living with a budget that cuts spending, taxes, and inflation. Boost home building by cutting taxes and regulatory red tape on construction. Third, unleashing resources and businesses to free our economy from dependence on the U.S. Fourth, restore safety on our streets by repealing liberal laws, locking up repeat offenders, and securing our borders. And fifth, getting immigration under control. These are our goals, but our mission can be summed up in one word: hope.